Am I going to get a high sign when the stream is on? Maybe? Mm-hmm.
That would be a no.
Probably live right now.
Bueller? Bueller?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Expanding the Universe of Life is Strange panel at PAX West. Thank you so much for coming out today.
Thank you.
And hello to everybody who is watching on the stream from home. We hope that you guys are having a lovely day, too. I'm Andrea Renee, and you might know me from What's Good Games or from Kinda Funny Games Daily. I'm joined by... Oh, thank you. I'm joined by Christian Devine, the lead writer for Life is Strange 2. And... That's right. And Phil Bach, the VO director for Life is Strange 2. So we're here, obviously, to talk about the franchise that we all love, Life is Strange. We're going to keep it spoiler-free. I know that some people have intentionally not watched some of the gameplay that came out of Gamescom, so we're not going to reference it too much to keep you in the dark if you want to be there. You can always go hunt that down on your own if you would like. But we are going to talk about this franchise and where it's been and where it's going, and you guys have a really unique perspective on it because you have been working on all of Life is Strange since the very beginning. Yeah.
Yes. This is true.
Yeah, we worked on, I got to work on all of them thus far, which has been really great. Life is Strange Before the Storm, Captain Spirit, and Life is Strange 2.
And Life is Strange 1 and Captain Spirit and Life is Strange 2 since 2014, so it's 4 years of Life is Strange.
So you guys have a really interesting perspective on really, what this franchise is all about and really inside knowledge of what's going to happen in Life is Strange 2. But just in case there's people on the stream or in this room that aren't really familiar with where Life is Strange 2 is going to go narratively, can you set it up a little bit for me about what we can expect to see from the characters and the storylines?
Sure.
Well, a few things. Some of the things that we've been talking about in some of our other rooms have been the events of Life is Strange 2 takes place 3 years after Life is Strange 1. It follows the story of two brothers, 16-year-old Sean and 9-year-old Daniel Diaz, who are forced on the run after tragic events occur that change their lives forever. And they're leaving from Seattle to Mexico to try and find out where their father grew up. It's this story of the brothers that for me is also incredibly interesting, but it's the story of that journey with the brothers that's the core of what Life is Strange 2 is about.
And it's really cool because it's a road movie template, so you're going to go on the road, you're going to meet multiple characters, new environments, so it's much more expansive than Life is Strange 1, and it's a bigger universe, so it's really exciting just to put these two characters in these new situations, and hopefully you'll feel the same way about them.
Also to say, because this is something that we've been bringing up that I find to be so interesting, is that this time around, the choices that you make, we all make choices as players in all games, but we also know that the choices that we make in a game like Life is Strange can be very big and have their own consequences. But this time around, what's so neat for me and what they're doing with the writing, what they're doing with the gameplay, with Don't Nod, is that the choices you make aren't just about your character, it's also about Sean, the little brother, and he's looking
Daniel.
up to you.
Yeah, Daniel, the little brother. And the game's about education. It's about teaching. I mean, I have an older brother, 7 years, same exact age difference between Sean and Daniel. So, and if you have siblings, you all know what it's like to have a little sibling chasing you. I know that I was the obnoxious sibling to my older brother, like, hey, Scott, what are you doing? With his friends around. So that's a universal. It doesn't matter. We all understand that sense of sibling rivalry or, companionship. And so this game is going to be about Sean having to try to teach Daniel, and of course your choices and actions will determine Daniel's behavior and the narrative.
Why did you guys decide to go with a theme about brotherhood versus where we have been in the previous Life is Strange? Was there a specific inspiration for choosing that kind of narrative path?
I think what Michelle and Raul and Jean-Luc Cano is the original story writer and the character writer for the game, and also for Life is Strange 1 and Captain Spirit. I think he just wanted to explore this world of brothers in this kind of desperate situation and how younger people respond to trauma and obstacles, and also the learning and the evolution of a person. And plus, it's a road movie story, so you're actually going to be encountering all these different situations and people. So it's a tapestry, and it's a larger tapestry from Life is Strange. So it's part of the universe, but it's expanding on that. So it's different. I mean, we want to be ambitious. We're trying to be ambitious and keep moving forward and push the boundaries for the Life is Strange universe.
Just for you guys, I find it incredibly interesting. I'm a very tough critic. I hate close to everything. I think a lot of movies and at times, other forms of media could be better. And everything that I've read, everything we've recorded has been, for me personally, just as great, if not better. I've really enjoyed it. Our first reaction is always like, oh, where are they going with this? It's great. The other thing too is that being on the road, which is really great, is you're gonna meet so many new people, so many new locations. It's just a constant state of discovery, which I've enjoyed a lot.
No, I think, we as fans all have like a deep connection to Max and Chloe's story and like the setting of Arcadia Bay. And moving away from that clearly must have been difficult for you guys on the team as well. Is there a specific thing that you guys really looked to when you were kind of researching new locations, or was there a process for how you arrived at this kind of road trip theme that you're going for in this game?
Yeah, like I said, Michelle and Raul and Jean-Luc are big fans of road stories. We all are. We're big Kerouac fans. We're big fans of road trip stories. There's a few Kerouac references, and obviously in Life is Strange. And so this is kind of a way, the road movie is a classic American story. It's the journey and the evolution and the destination. So I think that because we all like road trip stories, and Michelle and Raul and Jean-Luc have been traveling around the Northwest and the States to kind of get inspiration. And they really do see, the French do see things, they do see America in a way different than we do, but it's a different way, but it's a clear way. In some ways I feel like Europeans sometimes understand America more than Americans understand it, because they do see things objectively as we're here. So they do have a sense of, where they wanted the story to go. But they just really wanted to do a cool road story. I think that was the biggest genesis, and to expand once again, to just create more environments, more characters, and, continue on with the story.
You said it perfectly.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, then we'll just leave it at that. So let's talk about these brothers, the Diaz brothers, and who they are, and kind of how you guys really researched into writing these characters, because clearly, nobody was a teenage girl when you guys wrote the original Life is Strange, but it really resonated with me in many ways, and we talked about it on our show What's Good several times about how you guys really nailed the female interactions, and now we've got two brothers, so it's a completely different dynamic. Right. How did you guys kind of arrive at that decision? Well,
like I said, we want to do things differently, ambitious characters, new characters, and we want to. Life is Strange. We all love Max and Chloe, and it was so wonderful to write those characters. Even more wonderful that you all embraced those characters. That was the greatest thing about it. Honestly, thank you. That was the greatest thing about it. So we want to be ambitious, though, and the team wants to move forward, and we want to create new stories, new characters. There's a whole diverse world out there, and we want to try to capture as much as we possibly can. And in the sake of writing, what a writer does is you're always kind of projecting empathy, or what would somebody do this? What would somebody do this? How would they do this? And doesn't mean that means you get it or anything. It's up to you to decide if the writer gets it.
And something with this is, I find that a good actor, a good director, a good writer is usually someone who has had life experience. If you haven't had any life experiences, you have nothing to pull from. So you might not know what it's like to have a boulder chase you in a temple, but maybe you've been chased by bullies. It's like you got to have something to pull from. And as much as you're right, we're not women, but I think that, and this is part of the thing with games or any characters of any ethnicity or any gender, is it's more about the experiences, I think, than it is about specifically
Well, how I phrase it is, culture is different around the world. It's unique, it's individual. Emotions we all share. So when you're writing, culture is always going to keep shifting, so you can't necessarily catch up to that, but you can frame something in that culture, but it's the emotion. That's the most amazing thing about Life is Strange to me, is like how people all over the world embraced it, and people just diverse. You could never pick one type that loved Life is Strange, and I thought that's what was so great about it. So but what people share is emotions. We all know love and pain and joy and sorrow and loss, and that's how you can bind a Marine sending me a letter saying, hey, I never thought I would feel empathy for these two young teenage girls. And so what is that people are connecting? Like, it's empathy. And that's what I love about the fan base. I think it's one of the most empathetic game fan bases, and people are very open and they want to share, and the game's about empathy. It's about looking at somebody else's position and not quite judging them in the most obvious way.
I think we all agree that one of the highlights of this franchise is the emphasis on diversity and the idea that many different types of people can relate to a multitude of characters throughout all of the installments of the franchise. And I think it's great that you guys are committing to that in this new chapter. Even though it's a different type of diversity, I think it's something that a lot of video game developers are just now starting to talk about, the importance of representing multiple kinds of people. You guys went on a trip to Mexico, because the lead characters are Mexican descent, and you did some kind of background and research.
I mean, we all do research, and it doesn't mean it's the only thing you do, but certainly, I visited Mexico and did wonderful research, and with my friends, and all that stuff goes into it. I mean, it's not just one thing, it's a million things that you're trying to do. And in terms of diversity, I'm disabled, so I look at, it's very important for me that we have representation, and I can count on my one hand, really, how many disabled or handicapped characters in the media there are, how many disabled writers or entertainers. There's very few. And so one thing about writing for Chloe, say, in the wheelchair, I do not know what it's like to be in a wheelchair. I would never assume that I can tell somebody what it's like, but I have friends in wheelchairs, and I understand the obstacles and the challenges, and I know how dynamic they are. And so it's a matter of putting yourself, and as a disabled person, you're often on the fringe of society, so that's what you bring as a writer, if you can, to the characters. But it's really about empathy and understanding, and that's what's going to be the bridge through the culture and everything. It's just having some empathy with the characters.
Funny enough, my dad grew up in Puerto Rico, and being Puerto Rican, and I found myself this time around having a lot of conversations with him about more of our Spanish heritage that I think growing up I didn't really talk to him about too much. So it's just been interesting to I've been discovering things myself while recording and working on the project. But what I love about Don't Nod is, just like you said, they don't shy away from this. It's one of the few companies that actually makes it a point through the writing, the directors, everybody at Don't Nod is just, and even the casting, of finding everyone the right people to do the job, but also to take it seriously and with the care that it needs.
Well, I'm going to do a little bit of a pivot here, because I really want to kind of chat about the supernatural part of Life is Strange. Wait. I was like, what's happening? So clearly, Max had this awesome rewind power in the first Life is Strange, and there's been a lot of speculation in the forums and on the internet about what we're going to see from the Diaz brothers in Life is Strange 2. Let's talk about the supernatural element of Life is Strange.
I can do this right now. So the powers they have are... You guys, everybody wants to know, but everybody doesn't want to know. It's like, what happens to Luke in Empire Strikes Back? Well, nobody wants to know. We want to experience it.
You want to experience it. So, in other words, we're not telling you.
Yeah. It would be terrible for us to do so, but
we're just cutting off the inevitable Q&A that's going to happen.
I will say this though, that like the previous ones, it does play a huge role in the game. It does affect the characters. There are decisions that have to be made because of the ability, and as usual, they've done a great job integrating it. You can say the game, but I would say the story, and they've done a great job.
So then let's pivot back, now that we got that out of the way. So talking about your work, Phil, as the VO director. So there might be some people out here who don't know what a voiceover director actually does.
Yeah, I've been I appreciate the question. I've been kind of a silent hero on a lot of projects. I don't know if you guys know some of the things I've been able to work on. I mean, I got to work on the Life is Strange stuff, which has been overly performance driven. I direct the actors. So I help guide them. I help, what I like to say, maybe more importantly, my job to do is to push them. Because again, me being a tough critic, I don't like to let things slide by. I think things can usually be better. And all the actors throughout the Life is Strange series have all been great. Sometimes I make jokes. They're never this angry at me, but sometimes I'll tell them, in the booth, you're probably not going to like me. When the trailer comes out and you hear how good it is and how we push the performances, you're going to like me. And it's always, it's important. The actors don't necessarily show up as good as they are, and they are amazing throughout the industry. They need guidance, as much as, you can't review your own work. We can write a script, but you can't review your own work. You need to have that review, and that's kind of where I come in. But also just to say, I work in the studio and through Skype overseas in Paris. Troopers, the guys that are in Don't Nod are in Paris. They're working with me crazy hours. They're there until 3 a.m. because of the time difference, working with me. Also, people from Square are listening in on the sessions, and we talk about stuff because, the script jumps around as it does with the choices that, we all kind of back each other up. It's kind of a check and balance system.
What was it like working with these young actors? Because VO is a very specific type of skill, and generally, you see a lot of voiceover actors that are much older because they've been doing it for so long. The kind of the usual suspects, particularly in the video game business. But you had some really young actors on your team this year.
A few things. One, I'm a huge kid, huge kid. Yeah. So I get along well with kids, as weird as it is. Like the bearded tall man is like, "Hey man, what you doing? Can I come and hang out and play with you?" It's like, I love kids. So in other projects and other games, I've had a lot of experience working with kids. There was a fun experience on Skyrim where a kid came in and he was like, "Oh, I know what this is." I was like, "You know all this stuff? I don't have to explain it to you? Sweet." But with Life is Strange, what was great was the kid actor that came in, the youngest actor, the one playing Sean, Daniel. I always mix them up.
Good, I'm not the only one.
Yeah, when Daniel came in and auditioned for the role, this was like one of the great life stories for me, at least so far, as he came in and he read his copy, he auditioned for the role, and when he did, I was like, this is too good. I think he probably practiced this too much. Maybe he worked on it with his parents. Maybe he worked on it with a private coach. And I was like, as I do, I'm like, I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench. Let's do something weird. Did you get any other copy than this? No. All right. So I gave him I gave him Sean's role, and I showed him all the. I gave him that copy, and I worked with it on him with fresh eyes, and he killed it. He was doing that guy's role, and I was like, me and Michelle were like, yep, I think we found him. Yeah.
That's really awesome. I am looking forward to hearing more of their dialogue in the upcoming episode, which is out September 27th. Don't forget. Christian, let's talk a little bit about your process for writing this game. Obviously, all writers kind of have their process for setting up scripts, and writing for video games is such a different process than writing for other forms of media. Do you have any specific things that you do to prepare that you did specifically for Life is Strange 2?
Clean the bathroom, make coffee, circle till you sit at the table and start writing. First off, I want to ask, how many people in here are actually interested in being writers or writing for games or writing in general? Just as a general...
Lift them up.
Oh, nice.
Nice, good for you. Yeah. Okay, I want to talk to you specifically too. I want to give you some nuts and bolts. So the first piece of advice I say is if you want to be a writer, an artist, don't do it. You're going to suffer, you're going to face obstacles, you may not get paid for a long time, it's a hard road, people may not understand what you're doing, and they're going to tell you what you're doing is probably wrong, and why don't you get a real job? Number two thing I'm going to say is if you're a real artist, you won't listen to anything I just said. You'll ignore me completely because you have to kind of make a little bit of a leap of faith if you want to be an artist of any kind, focusing on the writing for video games, because to me it's a really new, untapped. It's not a golden age. I call it a blue age. It's a wonderful new age of storytelling, and I've always said that. A little background: I grew up in Sacramento, California, and my best friend was John Romero, and so. John Romero created Doom and Quake and et cetera, et cetera. So early on, John was in when we were in freshman class, ignoring the teacher, John is coding, literally writing pages of code in his tablet at age 15, and he's selling games at age 15. He was already a gamer. He was always making money, you know, and so I was behind him writing stories and comics. And so video game writing is at a very, very, very young, I compare it to like the silent film era almost, or the era of the 1960s when the production code dropped and you could have like more adult themes. Just now people are finally starting to see how narration can play into gaming. But I understand there's a frisson, there's a tension between a game and a story, because when you're playing a game, it's a win or lose, and there's multiple choices. So the trick for a game like Life is Strange is to do the branching, to find the multiple storylines. So that's the biggest challenge. And the process for the game is basically, so Jean-Luc passes over the story to me. I go through and kind of Americanize it to make sure it fits the pieces of America that work. And Jean-Luc has got character sheets laid out, and I'll write out my own, and then we'll all talk about what we want to do with the characters. It's a very involved writing process. It's multiple layers. There's writing the dialogue, there's writing, the environmental storytelling is a huge part of Life is Strange, the writing. And so there's that kind of writing, and then there's the inner thoughts, the Zen sequences. We're talking like 5 or 6, and the branching dialogue. So it's like 5 or 6 different kinds of writing that you're going to be doing. And if you're going to write for games, you have to kind of, screenwriters like, I'm a screenwriter too, but like, screenwriters can write video games, but they bring a lot of big screenwriters to write games. It doesn't always work out because it's more linear, and you really have to think branching and jumping all over the place. Yeah. So,
did you guys have any decisions, because obviously this game is very heavily focused on choice, that you guys really fought about, or that you kind of like clashed about? Like, hey, I think that this decision should be more impactful than this one, because there's a lot of small choices that we make in Life is Strange, but there's a couple like really big ones that are going to have a very big narrative impact.
I have a story about this. By the way, something also to say about the previous question also is, I will say the first time I read Life is Strange 1, I knew from the get-go, I was like, this is something. I loved it. And I felt that, more importantly, the correct word, it was very grounded. So I wanted to say that to you. So stories about that, about the choice of making the choice and pushing things. There was one story early on, thanks to games like all the Life is Strange series. Now when I work on a different project, people are like, oh, he knows what he's doing. Versus in the past, it's like, no, I know what I'm doing. But when we did it was the very first recording for Life is Strange, and there was a line in there where, and I very rarely bring anything up like this, because when I voice direct, also being a writer, I always ask myself, why did the writer write it like this? Never, why did the writer write it like this? So I'm always trying to, I need to make it work. I need to find the nuance. I need to see how this matters with this. But I remember there was one line early on, it was my first day working with the team, and I go, is this line a line that kind of reveals that this person might be the bad guy, but you're not going to really show it until like episode 4 or 5, because they didn't tell me. And they go, long pause. Yes? And I was like, get rid of the line. And in that moment, more so than any like client at that time to date, gave me a lot of trust. I gave a lot of trust to them. There was a lot of trust from the writer to me through Skype. And it's like, I've never had that much trust from the studios, from Square, from the people who were involved to let me try and do what I do. And honestly, you have to do that, and if I'm bad, fire me. But if I'm good and there's trust, then things work out.
Well, on behalf of all of us, thank you, because I was surprised when we got to episode 4. I don't know about anybody else in this room.
Well, honestly, the thing, I don't know what line that you cut, by the way, that I cut.
I took your words and I was like, get it out of here.
I don't think I was there that day.
Did Christian write that?
But what I did put in Life is Strange that maybe Phil missed is the very first thing that Jefferson says in the game, which is, I could put any of you in a dark corner and frame you. And we had a lot of talk about that, because they were like, are you sure that's... And I'm like, I think we're going to get away with this if we just put it in the background, because... And later on, people are like, oh, he tells you from the...
I don't know if that was that one.
Well, I mean, I think spoilers from season 1
Yeah.
are on the table at this point. If you're in this room and you haven't played it yet, first, shame on you. Go play it.
Vader is his father.
Cut the mics. I did want to talk a little bit about this idea of education, Christian, that you brought up earlier, because when we were talking about the panel preparing, I had a little bit of trouble understanding like what you meant by that, because we're talking about the hard choices and narrative branches and things like that that are really kind of iconic with this franchise. But you guys are doing something a little bit different, and education is like a core piece of that between these two characters. Right. Can you explain like how these choices are going to work and what the education means?
Sure, without giving too much of the story away. Like I said, it's a story of an older brother who's been thrown in the position of having to become the parental figure to his younger brother. And let's face it, most 17-year-old kids, it's going to be very hard for them to do that. And that's part of the education. So it's a process of growth for Sean, and also teaching Daniel right or wrong as you see it, as the player sees fit, because those choices will make Daniel potentially go off in different directions, or Sean go off in different directions. So, the theme of education is important because, we do like to think that we're not teaching, lecturing people about anything in the game, but just exposing the world and having us be involved in it and question things. So that's where the education theme, I think, really plays in. And you'll discover things along the way. It's like it's a road journey, so you're discovering things.
But also to that, I kind of brought it up a little bit earlier, but just again to reflect on it, it's when you make a choice sometimes in Life is Strange, you kind of sit there and go, crap.
All the time?
And you're looking at the green button and you're looking at the blue or whatever. And but I'm telling you, it's a very different thing because you're there, it's you at home or wherever you are, and then it's the player, the character, and you're trying to make that choice. But it's another thing to make a choice and realize, crap, he's watching me. The choices you make will affect that character. The choices you make will change how your little brother will interact with the world and the different things that will occur along the way. And like with these games, the choices you make in the beginning, later, episode 1, it carries, and it does change and affect not just the relationship between those two, but what happens in the story and things that happen along the way.
Yeah, we were having a really fascinating discussion about the kind of evolution of narrative in video games overall, and how games like Life is Strange really are helping to push that forward. And kind of narrative is becoming much bigger in video games than it has been. And we were kind of making the joke that there's this weird thing going around where people are talking about single-player games not being as cool as they used to be. And
Who needs them?
I was like, that doesn't sound right. I play single-player narrative games all the time. So what are the kinds of things that you guys are really excited about where we're at now with the way that narrative is kind of really being pushed forward?
Well, like I said, I think we are in this blue age of storytelling, and it's interesting because in all other media forms, we understand the nature of story and literature, but in gaming, like I said, it's somewhat new. So I think not everybody necessarily loves, when I play a game, often I just want to blow away Nazi demons. I just want to go down a hall and, wipe out everything. Because I'm writing all day on narrative, so sometimes you just want to, but I think that, the narrative element is becoming so important. There's so many there's so much what happens to Edith Finch. So many games now are having great storytelling. It really is when Life is Strange came out, I was excited because I said, this game is going to come out at the right time. It's going to be really cool. And then I saw The Witcher and all these games come out there. I'm like, wow, this is a great year for storytelling in video games. So I think, and as the technology, I think technology-wise, I think we're just kind of we're here. When you play a game, from Pong to Doom, it's a kind of an amazing evolution. And so I think storytelling is going to be the next phase. And I do think, movies in a way are kind of, I don't want to say dying off because I'm a screenwriter, I love movies, but there's something it's funny because when I wrote for the first Deus Ex and moved to Hollywood for years to work on screenplays, and eventually I was like, I want to get back into video games because I was kind of disappointed in the 90s. I thought that storytelling wasn't being pushed, although Deus Ex was like, yes, that's the one, but I thought, we got to do more with this. But I was like, it'll happen, just wait a few years. And I wanted more diversity, more representation. There needed more people coming in to changing the dialogue. So I just think we're going to have this new, the storytelling is just going to keep expanding. So that's why for writers, I do think it's a really good time for people to start looking at video games as a potential field, if that's the field that you're interested in.
I think that there is, it's been really great for this push. And I think because things have gotten better, it's honestly the only reason why I'm up here is that hopefully you guys responded to some of the performances and the acting and some of the things that were brought to the table, some of the things that we pushed. And I have fought very hard throughout my life to try and be better myself and give you guys stuff that's great because I want stuff that's great in every medium. But the other thing too is that games, for the most part, there was a long time where you could sell the gimmick as much as you could do it with a film. You could say, it's in 3D now, it's in Cinescope. But there's a moment where now we can do anything we want in games. We can do anything we want on film, and now we can do anything we want in TV. And now the thing that has to be there is story. So even if you have this amazing, giant, mechanical beast on screen, if the story's not there, you guys don't care. Like if you don't leave feeling something, or getting something there when in those moments when you're in the dark experiencing this, none of it matters. So for me, I'm incredibly happy to be a part of this team and the fact that, performance has been so important and narrative.
I think it's interesting hearing you talk about your experiences working on other projects after having worked on Life is Strange, and this idea that it as a franchise is now being held up as something that you can compare other games against, and how that's such a testament to what the team at Don't Nod really did with the very first season of like, now we say, oh, that game is like Life is Strange, and that they've really kind of carved out this very specific type of video game. Do you see that like a lot, or is it something that's just happened recently?
I think it's happened. There are other game companies that I look up to that are also doing some amazing things, also under the Square umbrella. And there are other games I look up to that are, coming out at the end, that I'm really excited about, that do push really great performance. I think it's almost a team effort across the industry to write better stories, have better performance, spend more time. Games, for example, here, a small caveat, video games sometimes will record, it's the last thing they do. The voiceover is the last thing they do. And they're like, you need to do 70 lines an hour. We've done 120. I think there was a session where I did over 900 lines in 4 hours with an actor, which was insanity. But it's usually held to the end, but now people are caring, like again, Life is Strange and some of these other games that I work on, where we're going to work on it now, then we're going to try it out, then we're going to maybe re-record a line if we have to, maybe we're going to, that stuff's starting to happen, and that's what I want to continue happen, because we have to treat it with more care moving forward. There's no other way around it. If you save it until the last moment, it's...
And the second to last person they hire is the writer. So, I'm being a bit facetious, but it's true. Writers are often brought on at the end of a project, like, oh, we've got this cool stuff. Ooh, there's no story, there's nothing interesting. Let's bring in some dialogue stuff. But it's like, you want to really do this early, get it out of the way, and have a template, have a foundation, and then you can build on that instead of trying to add it on, which is not it doesn't maximize your creative potential. And because people a lot of times just think that, the story is not important, or the dialogue is not important. I mean, even playing the new Wolfenstein games, which I think are great. And trust me, I want to go kill Nazi demons, run out the hall, but I really like the story they did. I like the dialogue. I like the performances. I think they did a really good job. And I think the great thing is now, early on video games, the performances tended to be very cartoony and very exaggerated. And like I said, when I write as a writer, my influences are the playwright Ibsen, there's Shakespeare, there's Tarantino, there's Greta Gerwig, there's a million people. And I'm trying to bring in all of these things that I feel like are not part of the video game narrative template, but they're tools that we can all use. Nothing is wasted, if you're a reader or writer.
I have something really, hopefully quick, but I think I find this fascinating about this. I think people only know what they know. So the more books you read, the more films you watch, the more things the more experience, the more your brain library opens up to things. And I think there was a while when video games first started out where maybe the only thing that they knew was, oh, Resident Evil 1 had voiceover. that's what video game acting sounds like. And for a while, it was like it took a long time for it to morph and say, oh, it can be something else. Yeah, so it's taken a while, but I think we're here now. It's happening now.
It's also the generation, growing up. I mean, John Romero, 15, writing games. Now John Romero older, with kids who are making their games, which is, it's funny because I have some friends in my age group that I try to get them to play video games and they won't. I can't play video games. I don't know how to. I'm bored. It's too much killing and I'm like, it's a little different now. So when I pitch Life is Strange to people that aren't gamers, I say it's a choose-your-own-adventure book directed by David Lynch and John Hughes and written by Stephen King and done as a Netflix interactive series. And that kind of helps them. The choose-your-own-adventure book was always my template from the beginning. The second I got Life is Strange, I was like, the ultimate choose-your-own-adventure book. Because that's, as a writer, I did those tons as a kid. I love writing. And that actually was amazing. This thing, nothing is wasted. As a kid, I was writing branching stories when I was 10 or 9. So all these things kind of build up and help you down the road.
This has been awesome, but we know that you guys have questions too. So we're going to go ahead and let you guys cue. We have a microphone that we're going to put here so the people on the stream can hear. And I want to encourage everybody to stay because we have Life is Strange 2 t-shirts for everybody here in the audience today. And while you guys are lining up for your questions, you can go ahead and get in line now. I also want to show you this Hot Dog Man
Hot Dog
t-shirt.
Man. Hot Dog
This
Man.
is what we're giving out at the Life is Strange 2 What's Good Games fan meetup tonight at the Unicorn Bar from 6 to 9. Everybody who comes is going to get one of these. It's different than the one you're getting today here at the panel. And we also have Life is Strange 2 buttons and other cool stuff. So please come by. It is a 21 and over event, and you do need to have a valid ID. And if you're from out of the country, bring your passport. But we hope to see you all there later tonight. And please state your name and ask your question.
I'm Scott.
Oh, and
Scott's got the question.
Scott,
Yes.
before you begin, I don't think I have to say that they're not going to give away story spoilers. Please
No.
don't ask a spoilery question. Be respectful of all of the fans in the room.
No, I
And
won't.
You can
watching.
try.
I've had them I've been thinking about recently.
Oh, wait, your name. What's your name? Scott.
Yes. I was thinking about it after kind of watching the trailer for the new game, in Captain Spirit, playing Life is Strange 1. And I know you said you didn't want to talk about the supernatural stuff at all, but something I kind of just pieced together is every single time that we get this glimpse of the supernatural things that happen, it's because of a traumatic experience, or something happens to these characters. Would you say that kind of plays towards these powers that these people get, like Max and Chris and Daniel? I know you said you don't want to talk about it much, but
I can say this, that a lot of people don't know, but you came in with someone who had Boba Fett, stuff on.
Yeah.
The thing that I love, any of you guys that do any video work or any blogging or anything of like game theory stuff or things like this, I can't answer the question, but I'm like, I like the theory you're working on. I love hearing this stuff.
We all love the theories. The
Yes.
theories are awesome. We really do.
Because there's sometimes
it's
where
fast. It's great. It's awesome.
You guys will come up with stuff and I'll be like,
Why don't we think of that?
We should write that down.
this
So I
game,
can't answer it, but I would say that what's great is the fact that you're thinking about it. And the big thing, though, is that they do put care into what the powers are for that character, how they reflect with the story. And, Life is Strange 1, right? The photographs, and the photography teacher, where the characters are trying to go, what school they're in, it all interacts. And I can only say that they've put the same amount of care into this one.
thank you guys.
I wish I could
Scott.
answer more, but I
It's
can't.
all good. Thank you guys for making definitely my favorite game franchise of
you.
all time.
Thank you for playing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Name and social security number.
Name is Tony, social security
No,
number.
don't do it.
Yeah?
I was going to say know your business anyway, but okay. All right. So, as someone who lives in the Pacific Northwest, and most of the Life is Strange is from the Pacific Northwest, and I actually did visit the lighthouse that was kind of based off of it.
Nice.
So I thought that was really interesting. But what was kind of like the inspiration choice of picking the Pacific Northwest as kind of a typical area where the universe kind of starts in?
Well, that's a great question, because I was going to kind of bring something about this up, because I've always loved Oregon and Seattle. I've been coming up here, the Northwest, for years and years and years. I have great friends from Sacramento who live here, so I have the chance to come up here. And in fact, what I like to tell people is, the great thing about writing, I think Michelle and Raul and Jean-Luc just appreciate, there's something about the Northwest ambience. It's kind of European, the weather, the culture. It does, like San Francisco is a very European city, and the Northwest, Seattle, it kind of, the coast creates that kind of expansive, right, Pacific vibe. So I think that and culturally it's interesting. You have a lot of, and you can say hella. I mean, come on. And
Kind of do.
and so what's interesting about Seattle, though, what I love, and I want to kind of bring this, is a narrative arc, is growing up and loving Seattle, coming here over the years, and then having a game set here. And also, when I was writing Life is Strange 1, just when I was visiting Oregon and Seattle, and I'm writing scenes, and I wrote, the scenes, many scenes in Oregon for Life is Strange in Oregon, or scenes in Seattle here in Seattle. So as a writer, I love the ambience of Seattle. I love being here. So for me, it's a narrative arc to actually be here all these years later, telling a story about Seattle and Oregon.
Okay.
Does that help you?
A little bit. And also I have something weird that you can add to this, which is I think we're fascinated also, not just where we are, but I think Don't Nod, it's like they're also fascinated with us as much as like we love going to see, Paris. There is that flip side. So like even when they make things like, I'm a big Disney Haunted Mansion fan. Yeah. So the Haunted Mansion, for example, that they have in Paris Disney is kind of a Texas haunted house versus us. Yeah, versus.
I gotta go.
Oh,
cool.
There's some really cool stuff over there. And then they have, but what we did was, we create this kind of Victorian era thing. So there's this, love of other cultures, etc. And besides, like you guys, all these tall trees and woods out here, it's like there's mystery out there. I don't know what's
It's
out
always a mystery.
By the way, I should say probably the initial impetus for probably Michel and Raul and Jean-Luc to set it up in Northwest was Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Because Twin Peaks obviously is a huge influence on Life is Strange, and we all love Twin Peaks, and we all love the ambience of that setting. So I would say that probably, it's a bit of a tribute. I mean, obviously, Life is Strange, there's a couple Easter eggs in there to Twin Peaks. So I would say the Twin Peaks might be the starting point for that.
All right, that's cool. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
I
Thanks
love
so
the
much.
franchise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love these questions. I love this.
Hi, I'm
Hello.
Yasmin.
Hello.
I wanted to ask, is it difficult to write accurate teen dialogue? Because I think teenage slang kind of just rapidly changes all the time, not even year by year, but month by month. And I thought and I really thought the dialogue from the gameplay trailer was really accurate, but also Max and Chloe in 2013 would be like, what are they saying? What?
Thank you. That's totally rad, man. I mean, I love totally writing teen lingo. Well, this is a very good question, because it comes down to character and region and linguistics. There's a whole thing going on here. So first off, when you're writing characters and location, every location in the world has a regional tone. It has a regional accent. It has regional, memes, anything. So you have to kind of look at how people talk. And also, you're not trying to, a story is not art is a recreation of reality according to your value judgments. So, but you're not trying to recreate actual reality. You're trying to create a character that will represent this fictive dream that you're creating. And also, from the writing perspective, you literally may only have 3 lines of dialogue to establish an entire character for a game. So that's the tricky part. So what are you going to say? How are you going to do that? You have to immediately identify them, and you have to give each character a way of speaking. Only Chloe says hell in Life is Strange. It's indigenous to her because that's her way of speaking. Even if you don't like it, it's her way of speaking. So what I love about being a writer is trying to capture, you cannot capture teen lingo because, like you said, it changes. It changes. And I honestly think this is a huge deal for writers now, is that, and artists in a way, because things happen so fast. If you notice a movie trying to use words or phrases 6 months after they're done. And games, you really can't do that in a way because the game's not going to come out for another year. So you really can't capture that lightning in a bottle, but you can try to capture the essence. And also, just like it's fun to write dialogue. I mean, linguistically, when you're writing dialogue, you want to be fun. You want to say "ready for the mosh pit, shaka bra." It's nobody says that, and they're not supposed to. It's Max being a dork, you know. But they do say shaka bra, but nobody says it like her. So, but it gives the character. So you're trying as a writer just to distinguish in the very short period of time you have to give that character a voice.
I also, when you write, they have a lot of bookstores where it'll be like, here's terms and phrases of whatever, lawyers, cops, you know, they have those kinds of books. There is no book on that. So the amount of coffee houses he had to visit to get it, just no.
And I want to add, I also want to add, 2 years after Life is Strange came out, Merriam-Webster's dictionary added the word hella to it.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Oh, right here.
I'm sure it was a coincidence.
You're welcome.
you.
That was my birthday
Thank
present.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Anything?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the question.
I just want to say thanks so much for working on these games. I love them so much. I want to gush for hours, but I don't want to steal time from the people
Dude,
behind me.
appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
I appreciate hearing it, you know. Yeah.
Honestly, the one thing that makes me, even when I start talking, I get a little bit clipped,
Yeah.
is the fans. I mean, truly. I mean, Life is Strange has changed my life. And the most important thing about the game is the success is wonderful, the accolades are wonderful, but when you get messages, letters
Yeah.
from people that said that they were thinking about suicide and that they're thinking about ending their life, and they play Life is Strange, and they, you know, we get those all the time, and it's so moving to me, and it means so much to me, and I'm so grateful that you played the game. It means something to you, and all of you. So
We get some letters on projects that are just like this. There are days where, you know, you have your finger on the button for me to voice direct, you know, to talk with the actors about something, and I will say that there are plenty of moments where on different projects, not necessarily this one, where I'm about to hit the button because I know I'm about to push a read, or I know I'm about to push an actor, or I know the client's telling me, no, we got it. I want that take, and I know it's wrong, or I know it's not as good as it could be. And I have to, sometimes this happens, I go, Phil, you ready to get fired today? Is it that important? And I think about the letters, and I think about how important it is to the fans, and I'm like, yeah, let's get fired. This is what, you know, and I push it for you guys, and I make those, yeah, so it's, thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think my favorite part about any game really is the storyline. And my favorite part about the Life is Strange series is I feel like the characters are believable. You know, everything that I hear and that I read, I can understand the characters, you know, and I'm not kicked out of the storyline. I feel immersed.
That's
Yeah.
great.
And in a lot of games, I don't feel that way. And before I buy each game, I feel like I'm not going to be able to empathize with these characters, but then I do every time, and I cry at least once. It moves me.
Gotcha, sucker.
Yeah. And my question is, this game has a lot of traveling, you know, unlike the previous ones where you really get to know characters over and over again.
If we did our job, it will happen to you again. And if we didn't, it won't happen. But I think we're all good, and hopefully there's trust. Hopefully there's a lot of trust. You guys are here because of the love. Continue the trust. The Life is Strange team Don't Nod is doing a lot of really great projects that I'm excited about, but the Life is Strange team has gotten to stay together while also growing considerably. So know that. Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Oh yeah, and just keep doing work. I'll keep
Man,
giving
you
you
said
money.
you didn't want to
I
hold
gotta
it
cut you
up.
off now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep talking. We love it.
Here's why I'm saying it, because there's 12 minutes left, and I want to get to, I see the last person in the back, and I'm usually that guy.
All right, I'm Nathan. I'll keep it quick.
Thanks, Nathan.
I can go on and on about how great the game is, but I'll just get to my question.
Don't do that. Don't say how good it
Now,
is.
how great is the game, Nathan?
It's great.
Thank you.
So you mentioned drawing inspiration from various forms of media and the rise of the interactive game genre. I was wondering what other games you have played and other story-based games you might have played to draw an inspiration into Life is Strange, or maybe stuff that you like, oh, I like this idea, I might implement it in some way into future games. For example, I really loved Detroit Become Human. It came out recently.
But what was it?
Detroit Become
yeah.
Human.
Oh yeah, Detroit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those guys.
Yep.
Yeah, I met some of them.
Yeah, and Edith Finch is great. The Witcher, I don't honestly. There wasn't an antecedent for Life is Strange for me. There wasn't any. That's why I was excited to work on it. I couldn't think of a game with teenage girls in an art school as the center of it. So in a way, it's a new universe that you. That's why I was so excited. And actually, and what I say is like the very things that worked against Life is Strange coming out, that it had female leads, that it was an original story. I always said that's actually the thing that's going to make it work, because you have to do something different. And I was waiting like. Women are 52% of the world. They're a market. Games should be made in that direction. Everybody should be represented.
Yeah.
Girl power.
Absolutely.
And
I've been lucky to work on a lot of female-driven games. I've been very lucky. Yeah.
But so, I mean, I can't say there's one game that necessarily influenced me, but I mean, I certainly play a lot of games, and so I love the story. I mean, Detroit Become Human is very cool. And having worked in the first Deus Ex, that was to me a great beginning and maybe spoiled me a bit for story, because I felt like we were really operating up here and but there's so many games coming out. I honestly don't have time to play everything. That's the problem. I just don't have the time. So
I would say I'm, not to name other people too much, but at the same time, it's like I'm a big fan of what Rockstar does. There are deliveries in the Red Dead Redemption trailer when he's like, buddy. And I'm like, yeah. Or he's like, what's the other line where he does the, seeing your name on our leisure? You can just hear that he has this guy.
I agree.
He was sleeping. Those are the things I look for. The guy was sleeping. He kicked him to wake him up. He's drinking his soup. I'm drinking your milkshake. And he's kind of got him. Those are the things I look for in games. I love Crystal Dynamics. I also get to work with. I also love Naughty Dog. By the way, one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, I saw Neil Druckmann at E3, and I was like, Neil Druckmann, I'm a fan. I love the things you do. And he was like, what do you do? And I told him Life is Strange, and he was like, good job. And I was like, thank you, Neil Druckmann. Thank you. Yeah. So we do look at all that stuff, but I think it's important to look at everything. You can't, like... And
in terms of storytelling, it's not, I mean, now games, the storytelling is stuff is things that you will be referencing, that will influence writers. And so, like I said, writing for Life is Strange, I grew up reading all the playwrights, all the, screenwriters, books, literature. So it's for acting purposes, I'm trying to write on the level where actors really have something to do and they have something to say. And that's something I think is becoming more and more prominent now in gaming. So
it's getting better.
Yeah.
It keeps getting better because we're all watching each other, I think. So good question.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael.
What up, Michael?
Hey, what's up? I want to say you're doing very important work. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Keep inspiring other creators, because in Life is Strange 1, that scene with Max and Chloe finding Rachel, that's the best acted scene in video games ever.
You know what? I agree.
And I couldn't believe it. And
just so you know, something that's interesting that a lot of people don't know is most of the time, and it's actually a little bit of what I prefer, those actors are not in the same room together. It's me kind of personally recording and understanding where they are and pushing them to that place on their own. And what I say is, a lot of people are like, they should be in the same room. They should all interact with each other. But I'm such a critic that I'm trying to find, like, they did this. It sounds stupid, but I'm almost listening for they did this on that letter. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for that stuff. But what I was going to say is, what was I going to say? I'm looking for that kind of stuff, and putting them, if I'm not doing my job, if it doesn't sound like they're in the same room together, fire the voice director.
Yes.
He's just trying to get more jobs.
Yeah.
and then with the
Honestly,
writing too.
I will say this, that this has been such a great experience to work on these projects. I've been wanting to direct since I was 8. It has been a huge godsend and has meant the world to me. Man, to work on these games, it really has. And if this is kind of the last thing I do, I've worked on some incredible games, and Life is Strange is just like, it's almost like I'm good. It's like I want to keep working, but if this is it and I gotta
go out
throw
on
in the
top.
towel, it's like I did it. I got to work on this.
And in terms of that scene particularly, I remember writing that, and it's actually one of the, who does this? What kind of world does this? It's actually one of the favorite things I've ever written. And just to show the process, not to pat myself on the back, but the process of like, how do you come up with a line for a teenage girl who's discovered her best friend, in this, grave. And in a way, it's like I think how most people react. It comes down, your thoughts come down to just pure instinctual, like, who does this? What kind of, like, there's no answer. And so it's questions like, why? And so, and the way Ashley, I can't watch that scene. It's almost impossible for me because Ashley is so powerful and the scene is powerful. And it's
all the
beautiful.
actors throughout the Life is Strange project, all of them, they've all done great. But I got to say this because it's funny. I'm on the verge of like, I'm getting watery-eyed talking to you about it, and then all I got to do is turn and see Hot Dog Man.
Hot Dog Man is in the back of the room,
In the
ladies
back,
and gentlemen.
and
Hot
then-
Dog Man!
And then I just kind of
He, like,
recover, and
snuck
I'm
it
like,
in his eyes and
I'm
just
good, I'm
stared
good, I'm
at
all right,
us.
I'm back. Thank you.
What kind of world does this?
So thank you very much.
And one more quick thing. I know we're short on time.
I can't. We have
ask
three
us
people
after.
left.
We're gonna be
We have
afterwards.
6
We're gonna be
minutes,
after.
and I would love them
Come
to
get
get
us
to their
out there.
questions.
Yeah.
We will.
Yeah, we'll
We'll
be
be-
around afterwards.
Yeah, for sure, talk to us.
For everyone who is afraid to stand in line but wants
be
to
out
ask us
there, so-
questions.
Hey, my name is Jason. I was
Hey.
just
Jason?
wondering, now that you're doing a traveling one, is there any temptation to revisit any of the characters briefly from the original, like Kate Marsh or anything?
Well, it's
I just want Alyssa back. She was my fave.
I'll say that, again, it's an expanded universe, but I will say that, again, if everybody within the Life is Strange team did their job, I say this a lot. I say that if Life is Strange 2 was actually Life is Strange 1, the hope would be, again, if we did our jobs, you would be asking, do we get to see Sean and Daniel again, right? So the hope is that you're going to fall in love with new characters, discover new characters, and go along for a new ride. That said, there's
a big Life is Strange universe, so.
yeah, big universe. So it's one of those questions we can't answer, but, I think the biggest takeaway is if we did our jobs, you're going to ask the same question on possibly and hopefully the next game.
Sounds good. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jason. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve.
Hey, Steve.
What up, Steve?
I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about the decision not to continue the story with Max, like that decision internally. Was there a debate? You guys just...
Well, I mean, as artists and writers, you want to be ambitious. You want to keep, it's like a shark. Art is like a shark. You want to keep moving forward. You don't want to, and so writing Max and Chloe and those characters, it's so great, so much fun. I love Max, I love writing Chloe, I love the voices of all the characters, and sure, it'd be fun to go back and revisit those characters, but at the same time, you want to keep moving forward, and artistically, you want to evolve and be ambitious and push the boundaries of the concept further. So it doesn't mean that, Max and Chloe still exist, and they're in Before the Storm and a comic, so they're still there for all the fans to love and embrace, and the game's still there. But we hope that you'll come along with us on this new ride, this new journey, because that's the evolutionary storytelling game process, is to keep moving forward. So that would be just the basic impetus, is just to keep moving, and also not get stuck in one zone, just to keep challenging ourselves too.
I think what's great about the Life is Strange series, and I know that Michelle and a lot of other people I don't know are fans of, this is the beginning of an expanded universe. This is the beginning. Who knows even what's coming, who knows how many years after this, but I think that excites me. That if there would be a moment. I think everybody has a threshold. This one person might be like, it's been one season, I'm done. Maybe 5 seasons, same characters, I'm done. But there is a moment where people will it'll fall out. And for me, it's more ambitious. It's more exciting to tell a new story. And yeah, so I will say, I'm again, tough critic. I'm you guys. Before the project starts, I'm you guys. I'm like, let's see. Let's find it. And I've been reading it. We've been doing it. We've been working on it. And I'm like, this feels good. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, our last question.
Last question.
Woo-hoo, last question.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Kenny.
Hi, Ken.
Hey, Kenny.
Hey. Early on, you guys talked about how storytelling is part of the ground-up process when you guys make Life is Strange. So I was wondering how, with the new game engine, how the storytelling influenced the direction of, I guess, designing a new game
Sure,
engine?
good question. We're using the Unreal 4 engine, so you can see the graphic, it's amazing. I mean, the graphics are advanced. That's the greatest thing about the game. We're moved forward in the graphics, the advancement of everything. And of course, that makes our job easier because then we can say, oh, we can do this now to make it look realistic, or we can focus on this. I mean, like I said, I think technology is really there for games. And one of the things initially, and let me, just quick story, like how I got Life is Strange. When I was doing the press conference for Deus Ex in 1999 in Paris, I met a French journalist, and we became like soul brothers. And then years later, he said he knew Michelle, and he says, hey, they were looking for an American screenwriter for Life is Strange, and he said, hey, you have to hire Christian Devine. So, like, thank God for the French, by the way. Make a friend, be friends with a French person. That's number one rule. And so when they sent over the initial, what they had of the game, which was just the scene with Max and Chloe and David with just subtitle dialogue, and then the menu. And then when the menu popped up, that was the first thing I saw in Life is Strange. And I went like, I get it. I get what they're doing. I want to be part of this. And then when I saw the scene with Chloe and Max, and so the art style of Life is Strange is not, you can't compete. Here's the thing also about gaming. You can't compete with AAA games. You can't always compete with this massive photorealism, and you shouldn't. Like, all art has its own style. And what I love about Life is Strange is they did something that most games don't do, is they picked a style that's kind of a lo-fi style and a painterly style. Yeah. And that, it just creates a different world. It doesn't mean it's the only world you can create, and I love the photorealism of a AAA game as much as anybody, but to me, it's like a movie or a book, it's a song. Yeah. It's a different tone, it's a different color, it's everything. So to me, the painterly style and even the lo-fi-ness actually adds to the charm of the game, etc.
Well, and I have to give you we're officially done, but you can finish your question quickly.
30 seconds. Here we go. Micro Machine style. What you got, Ryan? Tone and style are incredibly important to me with what he's saying, and for me, it's we've been doing a lot of shows, and I keep staring at this, and it's like this is already a huge jump in what they've been doing, and like when I say they made the woods, I mean they made the woods. It's like almost so much so. So they have had to. You almost answered your own question. You were like, "What is it like being from the ground up, even with the new game engine?" That's how much it's been. But again, when we're pushing narrative, I will say this, all those things have been really great tools, but the important thing has been, story, performance, characters, writing, directing, all that stuff. So,
Thank you so much. And thank you so much to everybody for coming out to the panel today. I know that Phil has just one more thing he wants to add before we leave, and we're going to roll one more little piece of clip.
Be very quick.
To end the panel. But please do grab a T-shirt on your way out. There will be the enforcers in the back will be helping pass them out. So please line up in an orderly thing. Yes, they're waving their hands back there. So Phil.
I'll be fast. I want to thank Square Enix External Studio, John, Adam, Peter, Becky, Riley, Toby, Joshua, everybody from Donob, Michelle, Raul, Luke, Sebastian, Masha, from Square, Matthias, and Alejandro, who have been on the sessions. The amazing casting that I've been able to be a part of with Timothy Covison, Austin Snyder, Brenda Phillips, the sound engineers who have always had our back, also unsung heroes, Mark and Daniel. Big thanks to all of the actors throughout Life is Strange. You guys have worked with me incredibly. And also, we've said it, but we're going to say it again. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be here. Thank you for the fans.
Thank you.
Come to the party, 6 to 9 at the Unicorn.
Come to the Unicorn.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
What are we gonna do now? There's nothing we can't do. I have no idea where we are. Feels like we're walking nowhere. I don't think Daniel understands what's going on. I can't tell him the truth now. I just can't. How am I supposed to take care of us out here?